Hey, can anybody hear me? Can you see the actual stream or not? Because for some reason it's not allowing me to see the actual stream on my side. Yeah, I don't see any video either. Let me see if I can bring something up. I'm gonna, well, it looks like something's going on with my, hang on, let me take this out of studio mode. Can you see it now? Are you able to see the stream right now? Or is it a black screen still? I know there's like a 7-second delay. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Apparently, my studio mode inside OBS decided to crash midway through the stream. So I don't know how well you're seeing it. I know that a lot of people dropped out not knowing that I was there. If you can still hear me though, just hit refresh and hopefully it'll come back up. Or I can take a 5-minute break to see if I can get this back online here. Let me see if I can get studio mode working again. Okay, studio mode's back up. Okay, so I was gonna talk about this real quick. So this is the version 2 of the MKS. I actually haven't loaded this board ever, obviously. So let's see what we got here. This is not the MKS Gen L or S Gen L. This is the MKS Gen L. So let me move this into a place that's easier to hold. So let me make a quick mod here. Okay, so for this board, it's pretty simple. You've got the USB right here. Let me just walk around the board real quick. You got your USB, you've got your auxiliary ports, you have your thermistor ports, your end stops or other devices, your monitor or LCD. You can also do an TFT off here. Then you have your servo ports down here, and I forgot if these are power ports. It's been a while. I think I2C might be in here, and then you have your steppers with your obvious overcurrent and sense ports. And then you have your X, your Y, your Z, E0 and E1. You have more power over here. It's dependent on what power goes in here. And then you have, I think, what is it? Your first extruder, your second extruder, and your fan, and then your bed. Now, I haven't marked it for the actual colors of the voltage and not voltage. So let me go through this real quick. I have to scroll down and see what's going on in the chat because I haven't seen everything for the last couple minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to connect a USB to it and see what we get. And we'll check it in Device Manager to make sure that we're working with the right thing. So let me go over to the desktop. Sorry about that. Camera times out and I still have to fix that too. So on the desktop, well, it's not transitioning, so give me a second. That's what's going on. The desktop isn't working. Give me a second to fix that. Oh, apparently the desktop isn't working at all, so I'm just going to go over to VS Code. So inside VS Code, I'm going to do... Hang on, I got to get to it. inside VS Code, I'm going to do an open. I'm going to go to my downloads, Marlin, then select folder. For this one, it's been a while, so let's see. It's Marlin, source, core, boards, and then you're going to search on MKS gen _L. And I believe it's the same for both boards, but let's see if there's another one in here, because it says 1 of 3. So here's the version 2, and it looks like there's a version 2.1, which I'm not sure about, but that's fine. So I'm going to copy this one because that's the board I have. I'm going to make sure that it's not a 32-bit board. So it says that it's an ATmega 2560. So I'm going to go back to configuration.h. I'm going to do a search on motherboard, and I'm going to paste it over the ramps. So we know what the chipset is already because it's the same here, so we don't have to worry about that. As for the -1, this might be different. I haven't done it here yet, but I'm going to try -1 for the serial port, and then I'm going to try and upload it. So let's click and see what happens, and I'll check on the chat now and see if anybody's still there. Hey Jessica, how's it going? I'm doing well, except for me having a small crash in OBS. So while this is compiling, let's see what we got here. So it looks like I got an error while actually compiling. So let's see what the error is. It says something about a serial port. So I'm going to do a clean, and then I'm going to try it again. And if I get another serial port issue, I think I'm going to have to do some research. So there is something going on with the serial port. Obviously, I'm not picking the right one. So let's see if I can change this to, or back to what it was, and then do an actual build and see if that works. So it looks like we're getting a little bit further. Looks like it's creating a file. So we're able to build in 13 seconds. So let's see if we can upload. Okay. So we're having an issue with the upload. It might be that we have a different chipset. So one of the ways I can check that is actually go to the workbench, and I want to see what it looks like. So I'm going to zoom in on the chip, hopefully. And that does say Mega 2560, so we're good there. So I'm going to go back to VS Code, or actually to my desktop. Well, you can't see my desktop right now because it crashed. So I'm going to look in Device Manager over here, and then maybe see if I can generate a new desktop for you here. So let me create a scene real quick. I'm just adding the information for the scene to see if I can do it. Let's see, do a second display. There we go. Okay, so let me bring it up so you can see what I'm doing. So over here in Device Manager, I'm actually going to go to the COM ports, and I can't see the COM port, so there's an issue there. So I'm going to trace my cables out, make sure that everything's powered up or powered off. And so apparently I don't have an actual COM port. That's my first issue. So I'm going to unplug this for a second. I'm going to look around the board, see if there's any jumpers. I don't see any. And I'm going to plug it back in. and I've got COM port 16. So that looks like I can work with it. So let's see what happens if we go into the actual VS Code and try this again. So in VS Code, I'm just going to click upload and see what happens. This might be a mess still, but it detected the actual COM port, so now it's loading. So I had some kind of connection issue on my computer. The disconnect, reconnect resolved. So that's how you actually load the firmware for that. Let me go back, see if anybody has any other chat questions. As for a bug in Marlin 2.0, obviously it probably has a lot of bugs, but we can go look. But your specific issue, if you could give me more information, I might be able to understand it better. I don't know which stepper drivers you're working with. I'm assuming TMC something. But let me go through the chat and see if I can figure out who was speaking for whom. Okay, tell me about your steppers, Abdul. Well, let me see if I can do TMCs on this actual board. I haven't actually worked with this board yet. So I'm gonna actually go back to the desktop so you can see what I'm doing. There's a habit that I get into that's kind of weird. Let me first bring up the desktop here, or the workbench, sorry. I like to mark these so I know where the voltage is. So I'm gonna disconnect this for a second. And I'm gonna show you in the browser how we actually verify where the pinouts are. So I'm gonna do a search on MKS Gen L2 pinout. And I want to know what the actual pinouts are. So let's see if we can zoom in on one here. Hopefully this will be correct. Now it says Gen L1, so we know that's probably similar here, because that's the same, that's the same. So you can see there's a plus on either side. So if I were to mark this, that would be the direct power voltage. That would be the power for the heat bed, which technically doesn't matter. So I'll show you that on the workbench because I'm on the wrong screen. So I'm actually marking these for voltage with red. And then the other ones that I saw also need to be marked with red. These don't really matter for the bed and the hot ends, but they may matter for other devices. And the last thing that I'm going to mark is actually the plus side to the fan, and also the plus side, the power up here. It's just a habit I've gotten into so I don't plug in something backwards and let the smoke out. Unfortunately, no one's ever seen me do it, but these also don't matter for plus and minus, so you don't have to worry about them. Okay, let's see. Yeah, OBS is a little bit of a challenge. Before I actually started the stream on Nerd Girl, I had an issue with 2 monitors that I ordered so I could actually do this a little bit easier. And one of the monitors came with a crack, and so like an hour before the actual tutorial began, I tried swapping monitors and reversed them dramatically, and so like 5 minutes before the actual tutorial started, I had to switch them so that they ordered right, because I kept scrolling in the opposite direction to work with the screens. But OBS is working mostly fine, except for me getting nervous and clicking on the wrong things. But yeah, let's see if how did that board work out for the BTT for you? I'm gonna actually look for the manual while you guys answer in the chat. So we're gonna need to find the MakerBase website here. This is on GitHub. And instead of image search, we're gonna search for this over here. And this should give us the actual correct information about the board. So I'm guessing it's this one. And we're looking for pins. And so this is probably what our board looks like. And as you can see, it's the same position for the actual power pins. So allegedly I marked those correctly. With the exception, it looks like, of this. The plus side's actually on the other side. So I can fix that by just marking over it. Not a big deal. Your fan's just gonna go the opposite direction if you're using it for that. But you could damage other things if you don't mark these correctly. So let me go back and see what the manual says here for setup for the configuration of TMCs. So there should be a manual someplace in here. Unfortunately, they mark everything as PDF, so I'm slightly confused. So let's see. Down here, they say how to order it. User manual. That would be helpful. Then we have TMCs. So kind of hard to do a tutorial or show you how to use TMC 2209s with just the board. So let's see if we can do the 2208s. And if we scan through here, they're going to have some information on them. It's going to be slightly more confusing because there's no pictures. But I think that is the UART pin right there. So it's these two right here that are actually have the jumper on them for TMC. So let me just read through here quick. Okay, they say to set the normal stuff. So let's give it a try, see if I don't actually let the smoke out of the board. So I'm gonna go back over to the workbench. I'm gonna take out the jumpers. And I'm gonna pop in the jumper that I think it is and where it should go. So I'm gonna put a couple jumpers out here. And it's saying that it should be right there. Right there, sorry. So I'm going to push this down. And then I'm going to do the same for the y-axis as soon as I get down the right pins. And then we'll take out two steppers. So let me grab some of those. So these are TMC 2208s. We need to know where the actual enable pin is before we plug them in because we don't want to set them on fire. So I'm going to go over that real quick and see what we got. So let me bring you back over to the browser for a second. Inside the browser, we're going to go look back at the actual pinout wiring. So down here, hopefully they have, nope, they don't have it there. So we'll go back to where we were before, hardware, version 2, pinouts. And I don't know if you can see it. We may have to check on the actual physical board, but I actually already know where it is. So I'll just point to it. It's right here, 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 and here. So on the board, because I just don't want to flip the board over right now, it's located here, 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 and here. And so we need to find it on here as well. And as you can possibly see, I'll try and zoom in on it so you can see it. We have our direction pin, and then we have our enable pin over in this corner right here. So we have to reverse this. So I'll zoom out again. And so we know the enable pin is right here. So we'll place that in like so. And then we'll do the same for the other one. And in theory, we've hooked it up correctly. Want to make sure it's all pushed down. So next, what we need to do is get some steppers. So let me grab some of those. So here's one stepper. Let me get another one. And here's another one. So I'll zoom out so you can see these in a second. Okay, so we have those set up. Now I'm going to show you how to wire it. Keep in mind that the actual wiring that I'm going to be using is actually going to be disconnected while I wire. So here's the actual cabling that I'm going to use from the power supply. Notice how it has ferro connections. And I'll put an Amazon affiliate link in there so you can find those, what they look like. So first I need to take an actual flathead screwdriver and loosen these up, because I can't see the side of them right now, so I'm going to have to feel my way in. So those should be loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place them in correctly. And then I'm going to tighten each one down. This is good because it helps you avoid touching wires, the ferrules. So that's all set. So we're going to do what's known as a smoke test. Unfortunately, hopefully this will not be a smoke test, but it's just to make sure that it doesn't catch on fire. That's why it's called the smoke test. I'm going to just plug it in, but I'm going to have to move the camera slightly here. There we go. So no smoke. So that's good. So the other thing that you can do on this board, because when I was talking about UART a second ago, I didn't realize that they had the green UARTs on the board. You can also use the jumper there instead of underneath where I thought I had found the position. There's actually two sets of places where you can do that. I believe they're silk screened together on the board. So let's set up UART real quick here. So I'm going to take you over to VS Code. Inside VS Code, I'm going to search on the A4988. And as you can see, we have a different stepper here than the A4988. So we're going to remove the comments for that. And then I'm going to find the TMC 2208s, which are right here. And I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste them real quick. And then I'm going to not make any changes right now here because I don't have any axes attached. We just have motors. But I am going to go over to the advanced configuration and search on 800. And I'm going to change the X value to 750. and the Y value to 750. Just my weird habit. And then I'm going to leave everything else the same because I know they're pretty much the same. So I'm going to go back and actually try and send this by doing an upload. And hopefully this will go well. Let me check to make sure I'm not connected. That's good, I'm not. Because sometimes I have this habit of trying to connect. So it looks like I have another compiler error. The first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the power from the board. And I'm going to go back and check Device Manager. And I'll show you that in a second. Because there seems to be something weird going on with the actual connection here. So let me bring you over there so I can see, or you can see. So here I have Device Manager. It says that I have COM port 16 available, and it's working. So that's kind of weird. So I'm going to go back over to VS Code and see if I can do a clean and then build again. So inside VS Code, I'm going to click on the garbage can to clean. And then I'm going to do just a build, see if it works. It's been a while since I've worked with 16-bit, so there might be a lot of things that I don't know, and it might be easier to use Arduino Studios, but for the moment, I'm not going to worry about that. So it looks like it built, so I'll do a clean, and then I'm going to do an upload. And let's see if this actually works. Now, I didn't turn on the debugging. If we have an issue, then I'll actually go to the debug and fix that next. But it looks like there's some kind of build issue that I'm having. But it looks like I'm able to actually flash it. So this is going to take a second, so I'll look at the chat real quick. Yeah, you can ask any question you want. Just keep it clean. Yeah, it would be nice if I could change the COM port to COM port 7. Unfortunately, what I usually do is do a reclean and then hope that it clears. Otherwise, I mean, the easier thing is to use Arduino Studios, which I'm trying to avoid because a lot of people are going to be transitioning to 32-bit. So I'm either trying to get them ready for that or make sure that they're aware of it. That's why I've gone straight to just VS Code. I want to keep all the confusion to a minimum. Plus, Arduino Studios does not work for 32-bit very well at all. So that's why VS Code's the standard now. So let me check on the build right here. Looks like it uploaded. You don't have to disconnect the serial cable in this case. So I'm going to go over to Pronterface with the camera so that you can see what's going on. So let me just bring that up. Hopefully it's displaying correctly, which it is. And inside here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect. It says that I have a connection issue. So what I'm going to do to deal with that is disconnect. Let's see what's going on here. It's telling me something about a warning issue, but I think it's that the connection is being held by VS Code. So I'm just going to disconnect and reconnect. And then I'm going to go over here and connect. Apparently that's not working very well, so maybe the COM port changed. So let's go over to the desktop and see if that's the case. So I'm going to go to Device Manager. And I'm going to see what my COM ports are, and it says COM port 16. I'm going to go back to Pronterface, and it says 15 here. So I'm going to change the number, and then I'm going to connect again. And it looks like I can actually connect. So right now it's giving me a warning about the X and the Y. So I'm going to disconnect for a second, and I'm going to connect the actual power. So that's going to have to be present for this to work. And then I'll reconnect and see if we have that same issue. So it says they're both okay now. So to test the actual X stepper and the Y stepper, you just click and see how it's moving. And on the Y, but they're moving in opposite directions, it looks like. So it's going clockwise on that one, and counterclockwise on this one. And it looks like they're both plugged in exactly the same. So I'll zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about here. So if I go to my desktop, both the wirings for these are plugged in the same. I know you can't see with my thumb in the way, but you have black on the right and then you have blue on the left. So I'm going to go back to VS Code, or I'm going to go back to Pronterface, and I'm going to disconnect for a second. Then we'll go back to VS Code, and I'll show you what I think it is. And I think this is the thing that we talked about the other day with inversion. So I'm going to search on invert on the configuration.h tab. And we're looking for a difference between the actual stepper for X and Y. So as you go down through here, we're going to see that there's an inverted Y. So let's change that to false. I'm going to unplug the actual power supply for a second. I'm actually going to disconnect and reconnect the board so that I can clear the connections. I'm going to clean, and then I'm going to upload again. And hopefully the upload will work this time. So there was an inverted direction that I did not know about, and this should resolve it. Let me check on the chat while that's going on. Okay, so the build's almost complete. Looks like it's successful. So I'm gonna power back up the system in Pronterface and see what's going on. So get over to Pronterface here, and I'm gonna connect. So we've got the low error, which we know about. So I'll disconnect for a second. Well, that's interesting. There's no disconnect button anymore. There it is. Okay. So disconnect and plug it in for power. Then reconnect. And let's try moving the X when it's done connecting. So the X is moving clockwise, and let's see what the Y is doing. Now the Y is moving clockwise. So we were able to figure that out. So does anybody else have another question? Unfortunately, the TMC 2209s, I need an actual printer to do this. So we can hold off on doing that. I can talk about screens. Wi-Fi, obviously, I'm not going to talk about because I'm not experienced in how to set it up in this configuration. But I can talk about anything on any board that I have that's not too complex a question. Like BLTouch would be complex because they've changed it to me having a completely set up printer to show you the unit test for it. Whereas I can show you the other stuff in a unit test format. So let me check on the chat and see what you're saying. Okay, I'm gonna power this down here. And what other boards do you want to see how to load? Because I've got a bunch of different ones. Let me bring up the desktop so you can see me cleaning up. So I de-energized the system before I started turning screws here, obviously. Back that out of the way. And for those that don't know it, I actually have a Discord channel where a lot of people seem to be very knowledgeable on the subject. So that's down in the chat description, hopefully. If not, it's in another video because I had technical issues, so I may have accidentally knocked it out. But we have a bunch of different printers. Someone was asking about the Robin MKS. Is that person still in here? The SKR Pro, I actually have one of those if you want me to bring that up. What type of... Oh, 3D Touch is just like the BLTouch. I need a complete setup for that. But I'm planning on showing a tutorial on that soon. I just have to put it in a setup and then reconfigure the cameras. So I haven't had a chance to actually reconfigure my cameras yet so that I can do split screens or change the actual angle. Right now it's pointing at the table instead of pointing at the printer. So I'm trying to figure out a way where I can show you both processes at once. In the case of the BLTouch, I might have to show you part of it in the printer and then part of it as a rolling video so you can see me actually setting it up, because I only have about 3 feet of space in this area where I can work, maybe 4 feet. And I'm working on cleaning that up for you. Hey, engine engineer, how's it going? For the SKR 1.2, I can show you parts of the steps, but I know the end parts might be wrong, meaning the probing for the 3D Touch. Let me see what I have here. I can show you how to load the firmware and all that right now and possibly configure it, or the way that I used to configure it, because they've changed it. So give me a second to clean up here, and I'll pull out the other board. So I'm going to put you on VS Code for a second. They don't want you to see the mess that I create when I move the boards, because you might be amused by what I do to keep the boards steady. So that's cleaned up. Let me grab another board real quick. Hopefully I'm grabbing the right board. There it is. Just prepping it so I can put it back down so it won't move around on me. So I'm going to probably have to situate this while you watch. So there's the SKR. Let's look up the directions for it real quick and see if we can see what it is for the SKR Pro. You might be able to use the board for a pick and place. Obviously, most people are trying to use the GTR for pick and place with the M5, but you also have to realize that I don't make pick and places, so any advice I give you on that might be totally wrong. For those that don't know what a pick and place is, which is probably just me, it's when they have that electronic machine that assembles motherboards and it moves chips in and drops them on the board. Unfortunately, I do mostly 3D printer videos because of the restrictions of noise that I have in my apartment with other apartments. So what I'm going to do is actually walk you through what I think the setup is based on the directions, or we'll see if it's a BLTouch. So we're going to go over to the browser for a second. And on the browser, we're going to search on SKR Pro underscore v1.2 btt GitHub. And this should bring us to the SKR for GitHub. And inside here, they have the SKR Pro. And as you can see, there's a manual. And inside here for the manual, the user manual. And then there's probably going to be something about the BLTouch, which is exactly the same thing as the 3D Touch. So let me see if I can find it here. It says to move the jumper when you're using USB versus direct power. That's setting up the drivers, which are already set. Gonna be a ways down here, probably 2/3 of the way in. So I think apparently I'm not finding it, which is awesome. But we can cheat and go back to the directions for the SKR version 1.1 for the Pro in a second and see if we can get around it that way. There might be some differences with pins because I know they might have moved stuff around. So I'm going to pull out the pinout diagram in a second and put that in a separate tab. So let me go back here, see if I can find the manual. So for the 1.0 version, if I open the manual, it said user manual, right? Okay. They have directions here for it. It may be slightly different due to pins. So let me scroll down here and see if they actually have it in here. There it is. The BLTouch. Obviously they show you an image that's not super good, but it's got 5 volts, PA1, that's a pin. Then they have your ground. So that's what we need to focus on. That's for your actual servo. And then over here, it looks like they've got PA, and then they have no pin. So we're looking for 5 pins. So let me peek at the board here and see what we can see. So on the board, they're talking about something, I'm guessing, right here. So there's 5 pins. And so we need to verify what those pins are. I'll see if I can zoom in, but I don't know if it's going to actually be there. Okay, so we can see it. There's ground, 5 volts, then PA1, then ground, then PA2. So we can decipher from that what they're trying to say. But for the servo, we need to know the order of actual pins. And that may vary compared to the actual BLTouch, but I'm guessing, if I remember correctly, either the brown or the yellow is the signal pin. In this case, I'm deciphering it from what I'm seeing on the other board. So it's going 5 volts, PA1, and then it goes ground. So I'm almost inclined to say their picture is extremely wrong on their browser. So if you look here, either they mismarked a pin, but there's 4 pins actually labeled. And this is for the version 1.1 of the SKR Pro. So let's go to the SKR Pro image that I just showed you on the workbench, and you can see that it says ground 5 volts, PA1, ground, PA2. So yeah, I'm looking at the SKR 1.2 right now. The directions are 1.1 that I'm looking at because they're not showing them in the version 1.2 manual. So I'm trying to decipher what they're saying. But essentially what you need to do for the SKR version 1.2 is line up your pins for your servo, which in this case is the SKR, is the BLTouch or 3D-Touch. Line up your pins on the first 3 pins, noting which one's the signal, and then the other 2 are going to be for your end stop or your Z minimum. But unfortunately, I should probably test this before showing you this because I have a funny feeling I might let out the smoke. And considering the price of this board, it might not be too smart of me to show you that. So what I'm going to probably do is have to wait until maybe tomorrow or Monday to work on this one for you, because I've had several questions about using the BLTouch or the 3D-Touch, and I've also had questions about TMC 2209s. So Monday I might try and attempt both these things live, and hopefully that won't be a total disaster. So let's see if I can find a BLTouch real quick. I have to go grab one in the other room. Okay, I was able to find a 3D-Touch. I'll show you that real quick. So here's the 3D-Touch, and then we have the cabling on the back. So we need to know what the wiring is real quick. So let's see if we can look up what the 3D-Touch is in the browser for wiring. Made by MakerBase, isn't it? Okay, maybe it's G-Tech. Here we go. So what I'm looking for is actually the pinout wiring for each thing. And so what they show you is the brown wire is ground. The red wire is voltage. And the orange wire is signal. And then it's black is ground and white is signal for min. So I'm going to see if I can plug this in and not smoke things. So I just have to remember where brown and voltage is and then look back over at the actual image on the desktop and compare the two. So what we need to do is ground voltage, so ground, voltage, signal. So if we go back and look at the browser, it's ground, voltage, signal. So we know how to set that up now, so let's go back and connect it. So to connect this, should be like so. So you have your signal on the right for your orange. And then if we look closer at it, we have our ground, which is black for the other wire. And then we have our signal. So that's how it's supposed to be connected. As for how it's going to work, this is going to be interesting. So I'm going to plug it in. If you see smoke, it means I made a mistake. So there's no smoke, that's good. Now this is usually meant to be tested in an actual configuration. So I'm going to have to disconnect this for a second and maybe we can get away with it, but I'm going to pop out the drive and I'm going to put it in the actual drive that we use to load. I'm going to pop out the other drive that went with the other board. I'm going to pop this one in. Close it back up. Pop it in here. And I know you didn't see what I saw because I had the camera zoomed out. Sorry, or zoomed in. So let's see if we can figure out what's going on in VS Code. Unfortunately, I got to first close this actual session in VS Code. And I want to go over to my desktop again so I can actually load the correct version. So I'm going to go to my downloads folder. I'm going to delete the folder that I was just working with because I made so many changes in it. Not really, but just a clean start. I'm going to extract all. Move this over so you can see what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm thinking about using a Ender 3 to do the demos, or one access for a lot of the stuff, for like end stops for the TMCs. But I'm probably just going to put up a Ender so I can show how to set those up. The TMC 2209s might be a challenge to do live, because usually it's a smart idea to work out what you're doing before you do it. Yeah, I made a bitmap video. That was actually yesterday for the live stream. I might be able to go over it again real quick, but I'll show you what it looks like in a second. The bitmap changes. It's really quick in the live stream. It's only an hour from yesterday. But let me go over to VS Code for a second. Inside VS Code, I'm going to open up with Explorer, open. I'm going to go to my downloads, go down to folders, select the folder. I'm going to go to Marlin, source, for boards, search on SKR Pro, and it's 1.2. I copy that. This might not turn out well, so warning you ahead of time on this. I'm going to go to configuration.h, search on motherboard. This is the way I used to do it when it was 1.1 or 1.9 for Marlin for their version, but we're in 2.0 and they changed their implementation, so this should be interesting. So in configuration.h, I'm going to change this to -1 for the serial. Then I'm going to search on num end stop, I think it is. Or num servo, sorry. It's been forever and a day since I've done this. I'm going to remove the comments. This enables our servo. We only have one. This is the time in which it moves, for delay, I believe. Then we have to search on BLTouch. And we have to enable BLTouch. And Creality Touch might be a 3D touch. I don't know for sure. I'd have to test it. And that should set us up for our actual BLTouch. There's probably going to be errors when I build this, so I'm going to do a clean first. And there still may be errors because I may have forgotten something, but we'll try and troubleshoot it. So I'm going to click on build. And we got a whole bunch of errors. So let's figure out what the errors are. So one of the tricks you can do is hold down the control button and click. And it wants to know something about hot ends, which makes absolutely no sense. So I'm going to ignore that error for now. Let's see if we have anything here. Not sure what they're talking about. Oh, I know what it is. Duh. I'll wake up in a minute. It's my platform ino.ini. As you can tell, I make lots of mistakes while doing videos. So I'm going to search on skr_pro. And there should be only one pro, hopefully. Otherwise, I'm going to have another error. I'm going to go to the top of the file. I'm going to change the actual default environment, paste it, and do a clean. And then we'll try and build again. So that looks a little bit better. I'll check on the chat, and I'm sure you'll tell me what I did wrong there. So, are you working with the bug fix version? Bug fix is a development version, just so people know. The release version is actually Marlin 2.0, but we'll see what's going on now with the build real quick. Looks like I failed miserably again, so let's see what that is. So, sanity check. Z-safe homing. So, this has to do with avoiding the surface when it homes. So it's probably telling me I need to set it. So I'm going to search on it. And it says Z-safe homing. So now I got to look around to see where it is, because I don't know where this category is. There it is. So I'm going to remove the comment for that and then try and rebuild, and hopefully this won't be another error. And I'll peek on the chat for a second. Okay. So it looks like it's building better. And now that I actually have a build, I can go to .pio, go to the folder, right click, and then go to View in Explorer, or Reveal in Explorer, and I'll show you that. Inside here, I'm going to go into the folder. I'm going to find the bin file. I'm going to send it to the USB drive. After I send it to the USB drive, I'm going to go back to the desktop or workbench. So I'll unplug this, pop it out. And for those that are looking for this, I'll put an affiliate link in the description for your convenience. And let's power it up and see what happens. So it looks like it powered up fine. The way that I used to test this is actually to go into Pronterface and test it on the machine. Obviously this part's going to be a little bit wrong. I also didn't set up what type of leveling. So those are things you'd have to set up. But I'm going to go into... hang on, let me see where I am. Inside Pronterface, I'm going to connect. Now I'm connecting to the wrong port, so I got to check that because it was a different board. So I'm going to go over to Device Manager and see where it's located. So inside Device Manager, we're going to go on the port. It says 17. So I'm going to go back to Pronterface. I'm going to click on port 17. And then I'm going to connect. And now we're connected. So I'm going to do an M119 to see what the status of the end steps are. They all say triggered, so there's something wrong there. So the physical connection is correct. The actual end stop connection might not be. So I may have to connect an actual motor to test it, and even that might not work out well. So let's try putting a Z motor on there just so we can test it and home it. So let me go back to the desktop so you can see what I'm doing. Or workbench, pardon me. And I'm going to find a simple stepper. So I'm going to hook up a DRB 8825 just because it's usually not a lot of work. I'm going to power this down for a second. And we want to do it on the Z axis, which is over here. So I have to check the actual jumper state. So I'm actually going to go over to the browser for a second and see what's going on. Inside the browser for Big Tree Tech, I have to go back and go to the actual guide for that one. So it's 1.2 manual, and it's the manual over here, and I think this was in here when we read through it before, but I moved kind of quick through it. So down here, they start talking about step-dir, and then they say what you need to jump for step-dir. So I think it's all the bottom ones, but their diagram is all messed up. See if there's a picture. Okay. So I'm thinking it's all the bottom ones next to the purple. I could be wrong. You might see smoke on this one. So let me give it a try and see if I don't smoke the board. So I'm going to take some jumpers. And I'm going to jump the first thing. Then I'm going to jump the other ones because I think you need MS 2, 3, and 1. Or sorry, 2, 1, and 0. But I'll scroll up to that in just a second in the browser. But I think this is the way you're supposed to do it. But we can always check the other manual just to make sure for this. But I think there was also a mistake in the manual or a lack of documentation that I had to figure out on my own. So this might be wildly inaccurate. So we also need to know where the enable pin is because we don't want to cook our setup. So I know that it's going to be in the upper left-hand corner. So based on what I'm seeing here, I know it's there. So then I have to find it on here and make sure that I get it right, which is this way. And then plug it in. And then I need to get a different power supply because I don't have it. So I'm probably going to have to delay that until I get my power supplies organized because I don't have the right power supply here to do this. I think it's buried in the other room while I was reorganizing. But I'll try and save that for maybe a Sunday thing. Okay, I'm confused, Michael. You're asking about aren't Creality's default state no end stops? Or are you talking about with the TMC 2209s? I'm not sure of the answer yet until I actually power it up with that setup and then test it. I don't know if I'm a big help today. I wasn't prepared for doing 3D Touch or BLTouch. That kind of requires a bigger setup than what I have in front of us. But does anybody else have any other questions? Because I'm going to cut it a little short today. I was going to go 2 hours, but as you can see, I've had some setup issues that have made it somewhat difficult to watch at times that I have to fix. And also, apparently the channel for Twitch, I still have to figure out a way to clean up the description so that people know that it's an active channel. But for those that have been doing super chats, I want to thank you for that. That's a great way for me to offset the cost of bringing you these tutorials, and it's greatly appreciated. And if anybody doesn't know, I do have a Twitch channel that's somewhat sparse, but it does have a schedule. I'm trying to do Friday, Saturday, Monday, and they're different times of the day. So Friday would be like 4:30 in the afternoon, maybe 5. And then Saturdays I like to do 2 hours, but obviously my material's a mess today. And Sundays are like an optional day where I pop in. And then Mondays is usually about 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. I get home, so it's like 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And also I have a GitHub channel where a lot of people seem to come and ask questions. And there are a lot of knowledgeable people in there, so keep an eye on that. And I want you all to take care, be safe, and have a nice day.